Hey everybody, we are on Sprint 34, Fleet version 4.62, codename Selenium. I went to a pun website to try to buy a pun for it, but they didn't sell any, so we're just gonna have to skip that part. The agenda, we demo user stories by feature category instead of by product group. We always read the user story aloud before showing the demo and explain why it's important to customers, what pain does it help alleviate for them, and why. Why do we do that? So we do it so we can create video clips that show the problem and feature to address it. And they're nice little video clips that can go in YouTube or in the website next to the feature. We always show where the documentation for the feature lives during the demo. And we include a list of bug fixes and improvements for reference, but we don't demo them unless they contain an important change that we think should be noted. So with that, I believe George is out. So I'll just hand it straight over to Victor, Dante, and Gabriel.
All right, thank you, Luke. I'm going to share my screen. The first story we worked on was using secrets in scripts or configuration profiles. A customer wanted to use some secrets that cannot be seen via the API or the UI, but once they get to the host, they would be exposed. So one example is API tokens. And here's an example of secret value. For example, you have a configuration profile and you want to put some secret value somewhere in your configuration profile. And so that's what a usage of it would be. So I wanted to kind of go over how it would work. So the secrets are going to be stored in the database, and they're going to be encrypted by the server private key, which, as we know, you can pass by standard input for maximum security. So we added an API that can be called to add these secrets. Once they're in the database, they cannot be retrieved via the API and cannot be retrieved via the UI. If you want to delete the secret, there's no explicit delete, but you can just override an old secret to delete it. So the primary use case is for GitOps. So GitOps will go through your files and then it will send the secrets to the server. And then once the secrets has been set, then we go on to profiles and scripts. So they are also stored in the database. And once the profiles and scripts are uploaded to the server, we validate them before to make sure it's in proper format, it's not using some illegal variables, things like that. We validate them. So we basically get the secrets, unencrypt them, validate the profile, and then we store the profile in the database. So then we have our host, right? So kind of the similar thing happens when the profiles and scripts get sent to the host. When we know we need to send them to the hosts, we get them from the database and then fill the secrets in the profile or script, and then we send them to the host. So that's the basic flow of how this feature works. So let's go on to an example. So I have a GitOps team. It has some profiles. So it has a DDM profile with a secret over here. And as you can see, by putting the secret variable in here, this is no longer technically proper JSON format. So we need to account for that on the server. We also have the classic profile, which I already demonstrated with some, well, that's not it. This is it, with some secrets. And then we have a Windows profile somewhere. And then we've got some scripts that are using secrets. So I'm going to go ahead and run GitOps on this. Let me just demonstrate my server. So I've got nothing on my server right now, so I'm going to go ahead and run GitOps on this. I'll reload. So we see they're in here. I'm going to go ahead and trigger the Apple Profile Manager, which by default gets triggered every 30 seconds, but I'm just going to do it now to speed this up. I'm going to go to my host. I'm going to reload this host, and I'm going to see that we've got a config profile and DDM profile in verifying. And now I'm going to go to my host, and we can see if we look in the profile, if the profile may be exposing secrets, but that's kind of part of the feature here. So we've got my secret name here and my secret value that was sent down. And then if we go and take a look at the DDM profile, we can see, I think this minimum length was a secret. So that's over there. And now let's take a look at scripts. So I can, of course, run this script, but I already went ahead and ran it earlier, so I can show you what the results are. So you see the script in the UI, it's not exposed. When it is run, it can expose a secret. So this is like a caveat. You should not be doing this in your scripts if you're using a secret. Because currently we do not mask the secret in the output of a script. Okay, let's see what else I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover some validation. So I have the secrets as environmental variables. So if I can list them, fleet secret. And then suppose I remove a secret from my environmental variable and then try to run GitOps. It's going to tell me it's not set. So when GitOps is running, the secrets must be present in the environment. Now also when uploading a profile, when uploading a profile, I have a profile that is missing a secret. It is here. It's got fleet secret does not exist secret. So if I try to upload that, it'll also give me an error that that secret variable does not exist. So I believe that kind of covers the main functionality of this feature. All right, back to let's go ahead and
actually,
jump over.
one second. I just wanted to point out something real quick from the customer request. I linked it in the chat, the original customer request, but just to put it in the customer's own words. For example, we could use this for licensing enterprise apps, interacting with APIs directly from the client, or securely managing local account passwords. It could also be useful for delivering database credentials or cloud services tokens that apps need. So just straight from the customer's mouth to the feature being delivered in this release. So thank you very much, Victor.
All right. I think let's head over to Gabe with the next feature.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Fleet maintained apps and custom packages via labels. So the user story was, as an IT admin, I want to install the fleet maintained apps and custom packages only on macOS, Windows, and Linux hosts that are a member of a specific label. And that's so that I can scope software installs more granularly. This, if you look at the original request ticket, I'm going to open that up real quick. You can just see here on the right, it's kind of probably small, but I'll make it a bit bigger. Here on the right, just a bunch of customers, well, both customer promise and requests. So that's why we are prioritizing this issue. But let me get to the actual feature. So a little setup. I already have a label that I've created called My Hosts, and this label is targeting just one host. But this could be any sort of granular label that an organization is using. And when I go to software, if I now go to add software, I'm going to try to add Notion. And you're going to see this new section here called Target. By default, it's all hosts. So all hosts will try to install this Notion Fleet Maintained app. But I can also select custom. If I select that, you now see that we have this label selector. So there's two options. I can either include, I can have this software install on any host that has any of these labels. I currently only have one label, but there would be a list of labels here that you could choose through. The other option is I could install this host or install the software on any host that exclude any of labels that I've selected. And you'll see a little help text here that changes when I choose the selector to guide the user a bit more to make that a bit more clear. So this is exclude any. Software will only be available for install on hosts that don't have any of these labels. This will also change based off of the install type. So this is what a user sees for a manual, custom, exclude any install. For an automatic, custom, exclude any install, it changes to software only be installed on hosts that don't have any of these labels. So just a little guidance for the user there. So I'm just going to try doing a manual, include any for the My Host label. So I'm going to click Add Software. This will just be a bit quicker for me to demo with manual. So now I have Notion. I'm going to go to my list of hosts. And I have two virtual machines here. So this is the machine that was part of that label group. So I'm going to go in here first. Because I chose manual, I have to manually install it. Let me go to Notion. There we go. Install. Okay, so that should install on this host. We currently don't have it. It should show up here in a bit. While that's going on, I'm going to go back to this other host. So this is the host that is not in that label group. So this host should not have Notion available. And as you see, when I search Notion, it's not available for install on this host because I specifically said only hosts with that label, and this host does not have that label. So let's go back. Let's see if this is updated. Yeah, there it is. So Notion is over here. So this was the host where I had that label. I manually installed it, and now on the host you can see Notion. And I'm just going to go over here. This is the other host that wasn't in the label. And you can see there's no Notion in its list of software. Notion does not exist. It's not here. So yeah, this host did not get that install. So that is adding a new software from the beginning. You can also look at that software. I'm going to go back to Notion. When I look at the details of this, if I want to edit this, I can have the same edits here where I can, instead of include any, I can exclude any and then choose different labels. So if they want to edit those labels after they've uploaded it, they can do that. And I think that's it. Oh, and sorry, another big part is that was for the fleet maintained apps, but this feature is also working for custom packages. So you can see here, sorry, I'm on a wrong branch, but you can see here that you can also do the targeting to include any or exclude any of these labels. So it works currently for these two, and I think in the future there's going to be some work to add it for the VPP apps as well. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else I missed. There's some activities if you want to see. So here are the activities of how Notion was installed. I can see a bit of details if I go show details. I'm sorry, not that one. Added, yes. So I can see details of how Notion was added, and you'll see this target label here, and it will tell you how it was added. So in our case, we chose include any label, and if I hover over this, you can see the label name that was chosen. And if you have multiple labels here, it'll list all the labels that were chosen for this. I think that's it. Is there any questions around this feature? Oh, sorry, the guide. The guide is currently in a PR. So once this gets approved, it will get merged in, and that guide will be available. Any questions for the feature?
I would just like to add that this will also work for automatic install. So if users set automatic install, this will be scoped only to hosts that have this label included, or if they don't have label. So yeah, like they could just set some app automatically installed to certain department, and then yeah, it works.
Yeah, so I did confirm it worked with automatic. It takes a while for everything to basically be in sync and for Fleet to know it needs to install in certain hosts. So for demo purposes, it was easier to show with manual. But yes, everything does work with automatic as well.
Question on, does this allow for you to specify multiple installers on the same team for the same title and just differentiate them by label, or does this still have the limitation of you can have either 0 or 1 installers per team per title active at any point in time, but you can drop that to a subset of hosts based on label exclusion or inclusion?
So I think you still get that same validation where you can only have one copy of like a package, an installer.
Okay.
So yeah, if I were to try to install the same package multiple times, I don't think that would work. Marco, is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. We didn't change that, so it wasn't part of this feature. So yeah, still we restrict that.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Gabe. Awesome demo. And as you see on the customer request, very requested feature. I'm seeing 8 customer or prospect labels on this. Part of the reason for that is it adds a lot of flexibility to Fleet and unlocks a lot of workflows for customers. So it's great that we have the ability to fit into the workflows they have established so well. And that is it for MDM features in this release. So next up, I'm going to hand it over to Sharon and Endpoint Ops for their feature.
Thank you, Luke. Luke, I was wondering if they'll give you a chemistry Nobel Prize for compiling the full table of jokes for elements. Think about it.
Maybe I should record those, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll start with Rachel and improvements for searching teams and labels on live queries. Take it, Rachel.
Hey everybody, here we are on 22448, and so this feature is a customer request, and it is a UI improvement where we are going to update how you select targets. And as a Fleet user who has 100 teams and or labels, or 2 teams and 10 labels, I want to quickly find a team or label when running a live query so that I don't have to use Command F to find the team. So our current UI is still on dog food. If you were to run a live query or a live policy, it brings you to the select targets page. And you can see on dog food, we have not too many teams, but we have a ton of labels. And if you wanted to search for maybe virtual machines, you'd probably Command F to find it. But now with our new and improved select targets page, if you go to add a query or run a query, you can now see we have these search boxes, and we have this thing that will show more and show less. So this is for users who have lots of teams, as you can see here, or lots of labels. And in my dev environment, I have both. If you wanted to show more, this will show you the teams and labels that are past our 600 character limit. And that was just a design decision on how to decide where to cut the number of teams and labels. And then when looking at this, instead of having to Command F, you can now actually search in here, which is great. So I can see, oh, I want to look at all these virtual machines here, and that will be selected for me as it is. Another thing I wanted to note is if you select something that is under the show more or show for both labels or teams, like this product design department is below it, and you were to run the query, actually you can't run it because there is no hosts that are in both these teams and those labels, since it's the intersection of both. So if I were to run it and I hit stop and I go back to run it again, and I select live query, you can see that it's still selected, and now the show more drop-down option is opened by default when you go back to this page, so it doesn't look hidden. And that is the new feature.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions? If not, then Lucas and Rachel work together on a feature to automatically create policies for custom packages. Rachel, is it you presenting or Lucas?
Lucas is gonna go.
Lucas, go for it.
All right. Hi, everyone. So as an IT admin, I want to add a custom package and have Fleet create a policy automatically so that I can deploy software to all my hosts without having to write a policy. So yes, today, in order to deploy packages to your devices automatically, you have to first upload the package, as you've probably been doing here, like in Add Software. And then you have to go create a policy and link that policy to the installer. And you have to kind of guess what the name or bundle identifier of the app is. So it's a bit involved. But now we added the capabilities to automatically generate that policy for you. So if you go to Add Software, let's go custom package. You can see here we have two options, manual and automatic. This is the new part. If we select, I'll show in a second, we're going to start with EXE just to show that we're not going to support EXE for automatic, and I explain in a second why. But we decided that's the only one that we're not going to support for automatic. The reason being that, give me a second, before actually implementing this, we decided to run some tests to make decisions based on data, right? So we found that we tested 13 or so X's, and we saw that only reliably we could generate a policy for 4 of them out of 13, so it's 30% accuracy. So we decided to not ship EXE because it felt like a broken feature. For the rest of, and again, this is because EXEs installers are very different, and it's not a very standard. So, but we do support the other installer types. So
Yeah.
let's
Sorry, and for
go
that,
ahead.
and for that UI, you can see once you choose an EXE, the automatic option is going to be disabled, and users can hover over the word automatic, and it will tell you exactly what Lucas said.
Yeah, cool. Let's do one that we do support. Anything else we support for the other four? Let's try with Microsoft. Sorry, I had so many installers here. Give me a second. I'm looking for. There we go. Microsoft Teams for PKG, right? We select automatic. We show that. I believe we show these for custom packages only. So if you have if your device has a Microsoft Teams, in this case, installed, I don't know, with a higher or lower version, it will not do a reinstall, right? It will just keep that host. Now we're gonna select automatic. We're gonna add software, and then once this is over, you'll see the following in the. Maybe I forgot to remove Microsoft Teams. Let me check. Obviously, demo. Let me just delete that. Sorry about that. It's already uploaded manually, so I'll have to, let's just delete this for a second. Then add software, again, custom. Automatic. And then you will see that when you look for it in the list, you will have this icon here. I believe that the Fleet maintain apps already have this feature, but now it's present for the custom apps too. So, and if we click there, you'll see here automatic install. And if you visit the policy, you'll see that, you know, this policy was automatically generated by Fleet. So for apps, we look for the bundle identifier. We're going to try a few more. I'm going to try an MSI, and that should be it. And then that's probably enough for this. And then custom package. We're going to try MSI. MSI are reliable, so we decided to include it. And for MSI, again, this might fail. I forgot. Okay, no. Warp. Just using a sample app here. The automatic policy is different. We are using the product code extracted from the installer. And then I'll show in a moment that, for example, I have a Windows host somewhere over here. Well, not a Windows, but I do have this Mac. And I will now refetch. And this should automatically install Microsoft Teams on this device. Now, one small item that I want to show real quick, it shouldn't take long. Again, we had to gather a lot of data to make this decision. And the other thing we added was sometimes we don't have Linux, you know, we need Linux devices with Fleet installed to test features like scripts, and in this case, software installations. So I added this thing where you can add, by running this command, even the QA team or developers or anybody in Fleet can run this on their computers, and you can roll a Red Hat, Ubuntu, Debian, Amazon, Fedora, and CentOS with Fleet installed. So to test, you know, any Fleet feature on Linux. Like I had to do this for this feature instead of having a VMware or VirtualBox or anything else. So we're gonna see on one last thing about this feature is, bear with me. There's one site, so I'm gonna 1Password latest. When you use DEV or RPM and you select automatic, bear with me. But this may mean it's already, okay. There's one small thing around those. So 1Password DEV, you're gonna see that the policy, if I go to the policy, it's a bit different And we have to do this because our policies support macOS, Windows, Linux, and Chrome. But Linux is a big world, and we have RPM and DEB based. So this policy is kind of detecting if your system is, let's say, Fedora, which does not have like a support for DEB, then this policy will succeed, right? Because we don't want to send a DEB package to a Fedora system. And the same for RPM, we don't want to send an RPM package to a Debian-based system. So we had to account for that, and then we added a small description to explain why that is, right? If we go to hosts, and we see, for example, Fedora, I'm guessing, okay, DB, you can see here that on a Fedora system, the deb package will pass, and we want this to be all right, I think that's about it on my end.
Okay,
I think that's
great.
about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucas and
And
Rachel.
then there are guides. Yeah, the guides are to do. Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say, Lucas? About the guide?
The guides for this feature are still, well, we still have to write the guides for this feature. We'll probably do that today.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks again. Next, we have Jacob that added software details and file paths in my device. Jacob, take it.
The small but goodie feature. So as an end user on the My Device page, I want to see file paths of installed software so that I can see where I have vulnerable software installed. And we can see on this VM here that I'm an end user and I can easily find vulnerable software on my machine. And now by click or tab, shout out to Rachel for making implementing this tabability quite easy. Now I can see where this software is installed on my machine and potentially address it quite easily with that. And that's it for that one. No documentation, just a little feature.
Okay, thank you. And Luke, back to you. This concludes the features. I will be back with the improvements.
Cool. Thanks everybody for the great demos. Even though it's the holiday week, the features keep coming. Next, we're going to go into bugs and improvements, bug fixes and improvements, which we have a lot, especially on the endpoint ops side, but everyone's contributing. So first we'll go over to MDM for their improvements and released bug fixes, starting with Victor.
Okay, thank you, Luke. All right, so this one, basically we fetch. Let me open this up. The issue is that we fetch the IP address of our devices, and if there's no private IP found, we throw an error on the server. But it's possible to not have a private IP. For example, if you have an instance in the cloud that only has a public IP. So basically now we kind of downgraded this error, I think, to an info or a debug message. So it's a little cleanup on the server to kind of reduce noise. Next two were actually released in 4.6.1, but were implemented during this sprint. So one issue was for a customer who had trouble renewing APNS certificates using our GUI. So APNS certificates contain the certificate and the key, and we allow our customers to bring their own APNS certificates and keys. And you know, this customer, it was working fine for them. You know, the hosts were working, but when they went to renew, they hit an issue. That's because during the renewal flow, we parsed the key, and we expected the key to be in a PKCS1 format, which is the format that we generate the key when we need to generate the key. So I changed the code to basically effectively use the same standard private key parsing code that the Go standard library uses for parsing out this private key for the AP-NS certificate when we go to generate a new certificate signing request for renewal. So not only do we now support the PKCS 8 format that the customer had, but we may also support other formats, other potential formats of files and keys. Next one, this is we had a kind of an issue with this customer that we've been working on for a while, where profiles were stuck in pending. So I did a bug fix where a profile could be stuck in pending if the host was unenrolled and then re-enrolled into MDM. When the profile was in pending, it would just end up stuck in pending forever. So there was one big bug fix, and then there was some additional kind of performance database improvements stemming from load testing for this issue. Another thing, engineering related. So we had a kind of P1 issue a couple of weeks ago, where a customer had trouble downloading their FleetD base. So as part of investigation into this issue, we noticed that occasionally our Apple notarization when generating this FleetD base was failing. So as a kind of attempted fix to that, we added kind of retry logic to retry an Apple notarization if it fails. Basically to make sure our FleetD based releases are more consistently clean. I'm going to go ahead and go over a few other issues for other members of our team who are out today. So this, Haziel worked on this as actually a story. And this is for an MSP customer who basically wanted to see the software title ID in the activity details. So they can write additional automation based on this software title ID. So Haziel worked on this feature, and I believe you can see the activity change here. So basically when software installer is uploaded or updated, the activity feed now has a software title ID field. Dante worked on a couple issues. One is we have these OS query queries for Windows, and he basically needed to update them to work with newer versions of Windows. And this issue we saw in our load test. We were using some legacy packs in our load test that were generating a lot of log messages, as you can see here, millions of log messages. And they're basically like legacy pack queries. So he ended up cleaning up these log messages so they won't. So the server would know that they're legacy queries and would not spew all these messages. I think they're errors. Yeah, errors unknown format. Yeah. Next one, another load test issue. We saw our OS query perf, which we used to basically create fake hosts, was failing occasionally. So he fixed that issue. And then Sarah, I see she worked on cleaning up an issue where if you go to the control section and you go to like a page 3 or whatever, and then switch back to somewhere else, there's going to be an error. So she cleaned this page issue in the UI. And that's it for the MDM team. Back to you, Luke.
Great, thank you, Victor, and thanks for covering for the folks that are out. There's a chat that I want to dig into a little bit in the video, just in case it's helpful for anyone who's not here. Alan, would you mind restating your question, just so we can clarify the functionality of the policy install and label scoping?
Yeah, so the question I had was, is it possible to have software automatically deploy without a policy being created? Point being that as an admin, I don't want to have to rename every policy to fit my naming convention or to fix typos that may be present. I also don't want policies to be visible to my end users through the Fleet desktop app, or to my admins who might accidentally delete a policy versus managing the software under the software tab.
Got it. Marco or Gabe, would either of you be able to field that?
So look, I was writing messages, so I didn't hear. What was the question?
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, my understanding is that to do automatic installation, you need to use policies currently. So I'm trying to think if there's a way around that, but I don't think there is currently.
And I believe that's an intentional design decision, that policies are the way that we automate installations. So Janice clarified for me, because I was a little confused, labels is the scoping method. So that scopes the hosts that'll be included. But if you turn on automatic installation, there's going to be a policy automatically created. That's what Alan's saying. I don't really want my users to be able to see all of that. There is thought in the future, in future iterations. Of course, this is just version 1 of the feature. As we iterate, likely the ability to hide those type of fleet maintained policies. So while we understand that's what's happening under the hood, it can be abstracted away from the user if they choose for that. And then if anyone wants to dig into that more, there's a good thread going, but I won't take up any more time. Thank you, Gabe, appreciate it. And then over to Sharon and Endpoint Ops for their released bug fixes and improvements.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Regarding the previous topic, I wonder if we have good documents, maybe worth compiling something bigger that includes both the
Yeah, there is a guide PR that is up right now. So I think once that's merged, we'll share with everybody just to make sure everyone's on the same page on how that works.
Okay, and we'll start with Ian with a bunch of topics, bug fixes and improvements. Ian, take it.
All right, let me get the correct window shared here. All righty. Y'all can see the Chrome window with the GitHub issues, correct?
I don't see a Chrome window.
Hold on.
It was a nice picture, though.
Yeah. Let's try this again. There we go. All right, so first bug on this list is we had a relatively short column in the database for installer URL, and sometimes you have long installer URLs for things like Chrome. So bump that column length up so that if you have a long URL, you can use it in GitOps for installing packages or pulling packages to be installed later. The limit is now 4,000 characters. That should be enough for this sort of use case. This issue was due to new lines. As it turns out, PowerShell doesn't care whether you throw CRLF new lines in your scripts, while Linux does, or Unix, macOS, etc. very much cares and will break if you do CRLF new lines. So we're standardizing on upload to just LF style new lines on all scripts, which will work cross-platform. We already had that standardization on package uploads for install and uninstall scripts, etc. So this is just doing that on script uploads as well. And that ensures that these scripts will actually work on whatever platform they're deployed to. Let's see here, this is I linked to the wrong issue. The macOS hosts, we had a count issue here earlier that basically this is a bug fix where the macOS host would show up twice, once in verifying and once in action required, when there was action required on them of log out, so that the escrow buddy pop-up would show up to rotate the file vault key. Now these hosts only show up as action required, as they should. Previously, script execution, if you disabled it globally, that would also disable uninstall scripts, as well as for some OSs, we require script execution for lock, unlock, or wipe, because we're just running a script to do that. This change exempts those particular scripts from the global script disable thing, so that if you disable scripts but still want to lock, unlock, or wipe, for example, Linux hosts, that functionality will still work. This was actually fixed by Dante in 460, 461, and 460 actually. Z standard support was added for uploading installers for Debian based, and the Debriate tool exports as Z standard by default. So when we added Z standard support, we fixed this bug. Then we have a couple of CVE fixes. One here is that early access program or beta versions of IntelliJ products, so IDEA, Golang, PhpStorm, etc., have what on the surface appears to be a different versioning scheme, but in reality, there is a mapping between those versions in the public, like 2023 whatever or 2024 whatever. We are now taking that into account for associating versions for vulnerability scanning, so we're not going to get those sorts of false positives anymore on EAPs that are sitting around. There's a little bit of an edge case on new fleet instances where going to a CVE page would give you a 500 if certain cron jobs hadn't run yet. We were pulling something that wasn't strictly necessary to build those pages, so fix that, and now one less way to get a 500. There's another false positive here. This CVE is only applicable to iOS Firefox. We do not currently support iOS vulnerability scanning, so just add in an exclusion for this, because the platforms that we scan are not vulnerable to this thing. There's some issues around our manual QA environment with QA Wolf. Was tracking those down. Basically, that environment has been up long enough and runs a bleeding edge enough version of Fleet that there was some data that got out of sync. So diagnosed that. I thought there was a actual code issue here. There was not. learned a few things along the way about how MySQL does the union operator. So this and this are just kind of database cleanup. It'll be done on their instance. That should decrease the number of cases that they see false positive issues on vulnerability counts not matching. There is some additional work to do there on the front end of showing how fresh those counts are, but that is covered in additional tickets. Moving on from vulnerability management, we have kind of quality of life fix for fleet control preview. If you throw a bad license key in there, will fail fast rather than just hanging. And then back a sprint or two ago, Rachel Perkins built out a tool for making sure our OS query listings are up to date. This tool or dealing with some alerts around package pinning, but it was easy enough to just drop the external dependency on the package and use underlying Python stuff to make the request, and that solved that issue. Also a little bit of a docs fix. We do actually have the invite API docs available as public. They were under the config heading, so I completely missed them. So we've revised that to be under the user section here in case anybody was looking. With that, that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And next, we have Konstantin and team, which are off today, so I'll present it for them. Let me share my screen. So we'll start with Konstantin. Since we don't demo bugs, I'll just show the bugs and we'll say that they are fixed. So first thing is policy queued installs and scripts aren't removed. When we have an automation with a policy to do either install or run a script. When we delete a policy like that, we expect everything that is in the database in the queues to stop running or to not be scheduled to run. There was a bug where if you deleted the policy itself, the installs and the script will still be running, and that was fixed by Konstantin. This was submitted by Ian and solved by Konstantin. The next thing is we have an API that allows us to remove automations when you apply a null. And there was a bug and that wasn't happening. And that was, again, found by Ian and solved by Konstantin. If you need any more details, I can drill down, but it's pretty obvious. And the last one solved by Konstantin was when we review an inherited query inside a team, the results are not filtered to only the team, but it was presented for other hosts as well. Again, the team ID was added into the code to solve the problem, and that was done by Konstantin. Another thing that I don't present for Konstantin is I'm only mentioning it because we had a priority at P2, Luke, is the Python packages table returning incomplete results. We have a PR standing for that, but it's still in review. It won't be in the next OS query, but it'll be, well, it takes longer for OS query, so it's in review and will probably be presented for, well, the next time OS query has a version. So that's Konstantin. Any questions? If not, I'll move to team. Team prepared a video, so I'll just let me reshare with. How do I do share sound? Optimize for videos. Okay, so let me show that. Tell me if you don't see it.
Right, a few bugs. One overview here. The first is a vulnerability, is cron failure we found in load test and production. There is a more of an in-depth session on this in the last Engineering Together demo, which I've linked in the Sprint Demos doc. If you're interested in that, it's I thought it was kind of some interesting findings there. I'll give you the high level. In addition to directly addressing the failure, we were also able to speed up the vulnerability scrum quite a bit. These are benchmarks from low test data in local dev, so we're kind of excited to see what results we're going to get in production. Next up, I think folks are going to find interesting on the macOS Homebrew Cask front. So this is one example. I think we've had quite a few of these historically, because I'm going to actually go into a little bit of depth here. We have duplicate apps reported in software because Homebrew can install app bundles. That's not the only type of Cask that's available, but it's probably the most common type. But those same apps are also reported in the apps table. And so just showing here, actually I have an example from apps, and until this change is put in, we also have the similar software reported in our Homebrew packages table. And what the problem is that's happening here is we don't have as much information reported in the Cask, particularly with bundle identifiers. Really important, really important piece of information for vulnerability scanning. In particular, we grab this vendor attribute, which is used to match against the right software. So all that being said, what we're doing is we're omitting Casks that install app bundles. Actually, I should go back here real quick just to show you what my Casks look like. For example, Firefox sells an app bundle. ngrok does not. So ngrok will still be reported as software in Fleet. Firefox will not be reported twice, if that makes sense. And so that should reduce a good amount of false positives today and in the future. Next bug is kind of an interesting one. We're not able to replicate this directly, so more to come maybe on this, but this is kind of a quick fix on Minio, which is a Homebrew install. Last but not least, there is an issue with vuln check data in that we were not, historically we have not pulled in the entire vuln check data set. We pulled in up to a certain point because we were assuming a certain sort order, which was true for one point, and it's no longer true. And so what now we have to process the entire data set, which is taking a bit longer, but it is addressing our issues. This job used to take about under 10 minutes. It's now taking about 38 minutes. More to come on that, whether if there's really any true customer impact. But right now, the issue itself of the missing data is solved. Linked in the Sprint Demos doc. If you're interested in that,
Okay, that was team. And next we have Rachel Perkins with a list of bugs. Take it.
Hey, everybody. All right. I'm going to try to make this quick. So I kind of categorized mine as well. So the first category is just unexpected behavior fixes. So we notice on the policies manage automations dropdown that there was some of the maintainers' abilities were being hidden from the maintainers in the UI, even though the API and the documentation allowed them to do things. One example is the calendar events modal. So I'll go ahead and show you guys what that modal looks like if you forgot. And what we realized was maintainers do not have access to the global config. So this top portion is not available for maintainers. So what we did was just remove the top portion and only allow the maintainers to update the policies down below. Also, the manage automations dropdown just has a lot of different nuances on who can update different things, and then based on whether you're looking at a team or not. So we added several tooltips to help users guide users to the right place if they needed to change something. Another odd behavior was we were getting kicked off of a team when you created a manual label. So we now fixed that. So that's another bad behavior now fixed. Here's one that I found when I was running a query on keyboard languages for a user. And so what happened was if you had a leading 0, they were being trimmed, even though some languages include characters like A and B and stuff. So we don't want those actually trimmed. So now if there are leading 0s, when you export the results, they are still there. And then, of course, I've been on my keyboard accessibility quest for months now. So the continuation of making the UI accessible via the keyboard, there's some improvements that have been added this sprint, which is being able to select targets and remove targets from the select targets thing. The manage automations dropdown is now able to get to via the keyboard, and the user menu behavior is the same as other dropdowns as well through the keyboard, instead of having to use like up and down arrows and some other funkiness. Cool. And then as far as the look and feel fixes, there's just a few of them. Like when you edit a user, the team dropdown kind of is sticky, so that is now fixed. Working with Rachel Shaw on that. Also, lots of table row overflows are now fixed, so you do not have this crunched up text. It is now a scrollable table instead, where the whole table scrolls instead. Same thing with this policy name. This was a regression. This was fixed, and then somehow this ended up happening, and now it's now fixed again. What else? Activity feed, we had some low contrast on some of the gray colors, so now it's a little bit darker. And then as far as other fixes, this was a good one, where if you tried to install Fleet Control via NPM, you were getting lots of warnings. Well, not lots, only 3, but I updated those dependencies, so now we don't see those warnings. So it builds some user trust with downloading Fleet Control with NPM. And then finally, our live query guides were kind of sparse. We have 2 different guides on queries. We have this main query guide, and then we also have this one that Victor wrote. And so what I did was I just spruced up both of those and added some more links in between them. So, and that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Rachel. And next we have Jacob.
Hello again. So just a few bugs I'll go through here. This was a pretty interesting issue where aliased columns, I'll just show you right here. So here's dog food displaying the bug. Because of the fact that live queries can have any columns that the querier decides, it makes that page, there's a lot of kind of hairiness around this page. And here's one thing that came up. This as memory used is an alias column, meaning basically generated on the fly for this query from the syntax presented in the query. And the issue is that the UI didn't have any information about the type of that column because it's just being generated on the fly. So here you can see that we're sorting this memory use column, which again is the alias column, increasing, and you see, okay, this looks fine, 1000, increasing. Oh, wait a minute, why is 206 above 1000? Because it's sorting them as a string. So, 2 is higher than 1. So we want to sort alias columns that are number types by as numbers. So since actually this table is already going through all of the rows it receives anyway, it doesn't give us any additional memory overhead to just keep track of the type of data that's coming into each column. And if it's all numbers, we can set the sort to sort as a number instead of as a string. So now we can see these are actually ascending. And then the rest I'll just describe shortly. So more succinctly rather. Here we just have a small arithmetic improvement. We had, when there were no hosts online, we were showing less than 1% online, and now we're going to show 0% online. Yeah, this was a bug related to the Linux disk encryption work that we delivered, I believe that was last release. When a Linux host was enrolled on a team that did not have disk encryption enabled, we were still receiving, show you the actual bug here. We're still getting it's pretty small here, the OS settings, this OS settings object, which we only want to return that when disk encryption is enabled for the host team. That's how we're telling the UI that it's enabled, and that was coming back even for Linux hosts that were on teams without disk encryption enabled. And again, extricating the concepts of disk encryption from the concept of MDM, this is related to that. So anyway, we're now only returning that object if disk encryption is not enabled for the team, which affects the UI. We're not going to display a buggy banner that was being displayed because of that. This is, so Victor mentioned earlier that there's a verification of fleetd base files that happens, and we had an issue with that. So we're now going to get one of those familiar incoming webhook notifications in the help engineering channel when that verification fails on any of the 3 tasks related to that. So verifying the checksums, verifying that the MSI builds, and I think verifying that the macOS builds, I believe, are the 3 cases. And here we have a UI update. We were using kind of one of our old components here and just updated that to use the new one, which gives us this nice, easy ability to control how far away the tooltip shows up from its base. So that's just a style improvement pretty much. And here we have a bug where the user is able to save when they're enabling SMTP, even if they haven't entered the required fields in the form. So we're just gonna not allow them to save. And yeah, we've got some big cool bug fixes coming next release also, but not quite making it this release. So back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Jacob. And Luke, this concludes the bugs and improvements, but we do have one more item, additional feature for OS Query. If you'd like to jump right to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so Lucas, please present.
Yeah, shouldn't take long. So there's a customer that wanted to get for all their apps, they wanted to get what's called team identifier. You can do that by running CodeSign. And that's provided by OS Query on this table called signature. So you can get the, I believe it's team identifier for all your apps on a device, right? That's cool. Now, the problem with this query is that it's actually hashing. Whenever you run this, OS Query is hashing or checking the hash of checking the signature by hashing the executable and resources. So there's a flag to turn off the hashing of the resources, and that works currently, but the table was still hashing the executable, right? So if you wanted to use that table for checking all the apps installed on your system, on my system, for example, on my workstation is 500 apps. By running that query, we would actually hash in 500 executables. So anyways, the query was too expensive, and we don't want that. We don't want the queries to cause issues on the device. So this thing that will be shipped in 5.15, OS Query 5.15, be released in January. We added a new parameter called hash executable, where you can turn off the hashing of the executable. And it goes from, in my case, 500 apps, goes from 50 seconds to 10 seconds or so. So in the future, customers will be able to use this table without worrying about performance.
Thank you, Lucas. And Luke, that's it for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for that improvement, Lucas. As we grow engineering, we have the capacity to be more active contributors to OS Query Core. So that's one of the things that's a priority for us next year that we're looking forward to getting involved in more than we have. I do want to call out before we wrap up real quick. This PR, so this is the last sprint demo with the current product group configuration. I think most of you are already up to date on this, but there is a PR into the handbook that'll show the new configuration. We're introducing one new product group. Now that we have an additional product designer and QA engineer, we have the appropriate team to be able to do that. So you can check that out. One good way of understanding what that looks like is to go to our website, because now the product groups map to what we have here. So MDM is going to stay as a product group. They'll be more focused exclusively on the protocol of MDM rather than MDM plus software. Endpoint Ops becomes orchestration and really starts to own that entire read and write operation of scripts and using OS Query. And then software management, currently kind of covered by both product groups. Now it's going to be a dedicated product group. Engineering manager for that will be Tim Lee. And you can check the PR to see the configuration. We'll discuss this more at the next all hands, but I just wanted to call it out since this is the last with the two product groups. We're looking forward to that. The result's going to be just more capacity and us able to do more and also have those product groups stay more focused on their area of expertise so they can really become experts in that domain and that feature set. Any questions on that? All right, cool. Thanks everybody. Happy holidays, happy new year.